Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Martine Emmons is a transformational life coach who broke free from childhood abuse, sexual trauma, and overcame cancer to become a powerful force of healing and hope for others. Martine describes traumatic events as fierce emotional tsunamis. They can leave impending doom and destructive tidal waves of emotions that hit you when you least expect it. Martine helps her clients dive into the depths of their trauma and pain as she stands fiercely advocating for them to shine a light on those experiences and find the lesson in the pain. She serves as a beacon of hope that guides you to see the strength, lessons, and purpose that can be born from the pain. You can feel alive with purpose again when you awaken your dormant strength, step into your power with a sense of peace, and discover a new wave of hope with the right tools and support. Martine and her guests are here shining their lights today through empowering stories of hardship and transformation to inspire you to find hope and to see that there is a beautiful blue ocean of serenity, happiness, and fulfillment in your future. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome everyone to Transformation with Martine. This is where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. I'm so excited. Friday is my favorite day, and not just like everybody else for, it's the weekend. I just love the show. I do. For those of you that are new, my show is every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And my show is about overcoming. The guests that I invite on the show, I'll have a story of overcoming, of resilience. I believe that we as humans can get back up from absolutely anything. I am proof and they're proof. And without further ado, I want to welcome my guest, who is a colleague and a friend. We've been in this work together for a lot of years. And I am so honored, Jami Hearn, to have you with me today. Please introduce yourself as you see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And as you say, I guess it has been quite a few years that we've been in each other's orbit.
Yeah.
So I am an intuitive oracle, and I love working with women to tap into who they are at soul level and let go of self-judgment, that inner critic. The voice is so strong sometimes, and reconnect with their own sovereignty. That's my passion. I'm also a real estate investor and an attorney, and I just started a really fun podcast. So
yes, you did.
I've got lots of stuff going on to chat about.
Yes, you do. And while we mentioned the podcast, as we were just talking a moments ago, tell everybody the name of your podcast, because to me, it just draws me in like right away.
So the name is Witches, Bitches, and Dead People.
Yes.
And it's all about normalizing connection with spirit and how we can use that connection to create an even more amazing life.
Yes. So, Jami, how did you, I know you, and I've been listening to your show. I love to go out for walks and listen. But there was a point where you said that you thought you were a little crazy. Your whole family was a little crazy because you were seeing dead people, and people were communicating with you, and you've been this way all your life. Yeah. So how did you feel then? And what did you do? Especially as a little one.
I just thought that was normal.
Oh, yes.
I didn't know that other kids didn't have another family that lived in the extra bedroom at the end of the hallway. So I didn't realize that I was experiencing something extraordinary. And in all transparency, I think a lot of children have that experience, and then their parents impose that societal restriction on them and say, oh, you're just making it up. My own mother does that. Even to this day, she's like, she calls it that talking to dead people shit. Thanks, Mom. Thanks for being so supportive. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I was probably going into middle school when I discovered that other people didn't have the same experience. My grandmother lived next door. And although, I may have exhibited some symptoms of crazy, she was totally certifiable. And she had a lot of activity at her house too. So now looking back, I see the lineal thread weaving through my childhood, but I wasn't really close to her, even though I lived next door. So I only really knew what was going on with her from arm's length. So I wasn't like in it with her. So I didn't have that support. And I'm just super appreciative that I kept the connection without having some support and guidance from my family members.
Right. Right. As you're talking about this, it makes me think about my grandparents' house. And I love my grandparents' house because very old fashioned, but there was, their bedroom was downstairs, and then you go upstairs and there's two bedrooms up here, bathroom in between. And the two bedrooms connected by closets. So it's like, yeah, we used to kind of, play in there kind of like a Narnia and go in there and freak each other out, my brother and I and everything. But I always kind of sensed somebody was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when I was, became a single parent and was raising my kids for a while, and the house I had, when I moved there, she said I couldn't keep my dog. And it was like the only place I could find at the time. And I was out on my own. And as soon as I told her, there's stuff going on in this house, she's like, oh, okay, you can bring the dog. Yes. My daughter often would hear women's footsteps, heels. She would hear, and she would smell like a jasmine in the closet. And I definitely sensed that. I sensed a lot in the garage, not so good. But then, that felt a little like something was going on there, not so good. But then I never felt that inside. I was never afraid. My nanny was, and I think maybe she was a little bit, I don't know, but I do know that sometimes I would hear like my son was up and maybe he was playing with his blocks or something, but it wasn't him at all. Yes. There was a little boy. There was an 8-year-old in there and a woman. And obviously you'll know more than I would, but I definitely was connected as well. Young and older. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And I think that that's not uncommon, that we have a sense, and sometimes we have some fear around following and investigating, but the curiosity gets me. Like when I notice something, I'm like, let's dig a little further. Who are you? What do you want me to know? I just bought a church.
Oh, that's right.
It's been quite a few months actually. And it was a pre-Civil War structure. It was built in the early 1800s. So I renovated it into an Airbnb. Yeah. And it's hot. Like there's a lot of activity there. My younger son is just as connected as I am, probably more connected actually. Right. The first time we went in there, he was like, I don't even know if I can go in there. It's that active. So it's kind of fun, in my opinion, to go find out what the story is that these spirits have. And I make sure that everything around me is a positive energy. And if I don't like the energy, I'm very clear with my guides that I don't want any message or influence or interaction with anything that is not operating in my highest and best interest.
Right. Oh, that totally makes sense. So were you always even young, curious as you are now?
Yes.
Okay.
My grandmother, not the one that I lived next door, but the other one who I was very close with growing up, was into genealogy. So she always wanted to go explore where our family had come from and different cemeteries. So from a young age, I was climbing through these overgrown ancient cemeteries. I use ancient really loosely here in the US, a couple hundred years old.
Yeah.
But that really sparked my curiosity to learn more about my ancestors. So my ancestors took that literally and have been very involved in my growth as an adult.
Yes. Yes. I just I asked that too, because I've got not only more fascinated, but more curious and not afraid of the curiosity anymore, like of what I'm going to find. It's like, okay, let's go. I'm excited. Whereas before it might've been, I'm not sure I want to know.
And I'm like, come on, Martine, let's go.
Oh God. Yeah. Now it's just so exciting because I can embrace those things. I'm not trying to fit in anymore. when I
Yeah.
was younger. Did you ever want to fit in, or was that never your personality?
It's never really been my personality. I'm definitely not a people pleaser. Like, I know what path I want to be on, and
Yeah.
under most circumstances, that's just what I do.
Right, right. So I was thinking too, I don't, did your grandfather, the one who always had these amazing jokes and everything, was he involved as well? And you should tell that story, by the way, if you know what I'm talking about. I know you do.
That's it. Yeah. I had a grandfather who was quite entertaining.
Yes.
He himself was not all that connected. However, I have had a lot of connection with his ancestors. Those ancestors came from Eastern Europe. They were Romani, and they're very magical in practice and in heritage. So I've spent a lot of time connecting with them and their magic. One of them was burned at the stake as a witch, and I have connected with her energy. So that was really informative and fascinating to get to know what she felt like.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, just like you were telling me to connect with my great grandmother. That's been really interesting too. She doesn't seem anything like my grandma. Very calm, like a peaceful presence. She doesn't seem that way. She seems a little more, at least what I'm getting so far is more high energy, much more of a doer.
And that's really cool, because whatever energy she's bringing to you right now is going to serve you as you continue to grow into more of who you are.
Oh, for sure. I absolutely love this. So when other people are experiencing these things and maybe they're not as curious as maybe we are, what would be your advice to somebody that's just like, oh, I don't know if I want this?
Well, it would really depend on the circumstance that it was coming up. If it was showing up like for them at home or in dreams or something, then there's really an important message for them. And if they're not ready to receive the message, they can always seek out a person to receive the message for them. So like they could come to me and say, go ahead, connect with my whomever. What do they need me to know? So sometimes that's a little more comfortable when that message comes through a vehicle like a medium.
Right.
Other times, it's just something that they need to work through. So if they're scared or have fear around what they're receiving, I encourage them to journal. More will come through if you detach a little bit from the experience. And sometimes our immediate senses are muted by the fear. So if you journal, things flow surprisingly well.
Yeah. It's really amazing sometimes when you just let everything go, like clear your mind and just listen and write whatever, even if it seems a little weird, just start writing it down.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, wow, that's not even me, or it doesn't feel like me. It's very cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. So we are going to take a break, but when we get back, I think it would be interesting to know, like, the opposite of afraid, like you're totally embracing this, but how do you get started?
Okay.
So yeah, I would love to talk about that. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning back, and we'll be back in just a few. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Jami Hearn, and we are talking about mediumship. We're going to get into shamanism, so many different ways of intuition, reading yourself, connecting with what spirit's telling you. So, Jami, on the break, I was like asking you, would it be a good idea to say what a shaman is, what someone who reads Akashic records is, and just the different names of different mediumships, basically?
Well, so mediumship is, like, the definition of mediumship is the ability to receive message from spirit. So you're like the conduit between spirit and the live world. I have a hard time with the concept of dead, because spirit is just showing up in a different form. They're not any less than someone in a human incarnation. They actually probably have less baggage, but we're all on that same journey. But the way that connections with energy show up for each person is very different. So anyone who watches me give an Akashic Records reading, if they were to learn to do Akashic Records readings, it would never be the same. I teach Akashic Records, and I've never had two people in the class show up in identical ways. And I've taught tons of people. But that's the beauty of this energetic process that we all participate in. So that can show up as shamans. I see shamans as earth healers. They connect with life through animals, through earth, rocks, water, the Pachamama, the earth. But they're healers. So it's the energy that they use, that they're sourcing from the earth, that aligns them with the shamanic traditions. And then there are psychics. Psychics have a strong intuitive knowing of things, whether they have any reason to or not. Many mediums are psychic. Not all psychics are mediums. I honestly think we all have the capacity to be, but that strength shows up differently in every person. So even though everyone has the capacity to do something, doesn't mean we all exercise that skill. Like, the majority of the population has the capacity to ride a unicycle, but most of us aren't out there doing it.
That's true.
And that's really how I feel about mediumship or connection with spirit. So this shows up in a bunch of ways for people. Some people are tarot card readers. We talked about tarot cards versus oracle cards. I prefer oracle cards. Tarot cards are just a system that someone created somewhere along the way as a tool of divination. So energy comes through those cards in the form of messages. You can get the same 3 cards for 4 people and read them differently, because that's all they are, is a tool. Oracle cards connect with a different energy than the tarot. Oracle cards connect with your energy or whatever intention you're putting into the cards, and they provide a completely different level of interpretation. There's no system. You really get to identify what the card represents to you. So I like oracle cards. Some people use stones. Stone readings are really cool. A lot of shamans use stones to do readings. But whatever medium that you receive energy through, that's perfect. And no two are ever the same.
Oh, yeah. That's really great. Thank you for that. Because I really wasn't sure about the oracle or the tarot, but there was a reader that I used to see when I lived in Nevada, and she was very accurate. She always did the tarot deck, but I think she just did it just for like the something for somebody to see.
Yes, that's
I don't
very
think she
true.
needed them.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just a matter of repetition. Like, this is my process, and I flip 3 cards and tell you what spirit says, and I flip 3 cards and tell you. But that's just, how each person derives their reading style.
Right. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. I just thought a lot of times people would be like, like they didn't take her as seriously because that, but she really was good. and I think, like, probably if you weren't sitting in front of her, because she used to be Reno Psychic, they called her. So
cool.
if you were on the phone with her, you didn't know what she was doing.
Right.
But if you're sitting in front of her, then that's interesting. It's very interesting. So we also mentioned before we went on break, like the opposite of afraid. If you're embracing your spirituality, intuition, and excited and curious, instead of like being afraid about when you are embracing it, like what's the way to just like for me, I'm really called more to it. As the older I get, the more I want to. So for someone like me, what would you say to? We're not afraid anymore.
So that openness is really the first step toward ratcheting up your connection with spirit. And once you make the decision to be open, you will still bump up against things that cause some resistance, because we've all been persecuted at different points in existence, different lifetimes, different parallel universes, whatever, for being who we are. We are an energetic being that is connected to the universe in which we exist. Just by the nature of that, we've been persecuted and probably injured, maybe killed. Some of us have a deeper awareness of those lifetimes that are creating that wound, but they're there. So as you're opening, you're going to bump up against things like that. And having a mentor that is a couple steps ahead of you really makes navigating those so much easier.
Oh, for sure.
Because, I mean, once you're in it by yourself, it's kind of hard to dig out of the hole, because when you hit that obstacle, you're like, I've already worked through this. Why am I doing this again? Because it's a new level.
Yes. Oh gosh, yes.
And the sisterhood of having a group or at least another person to connect with really raises the vibration for you. So it moves you through that process more quickly.
So for someone like me who, I've been aware of certain things, but haven't really embraced it like you have from a young age, do I have a chance of seeing my sister like you see her?
Of
I
course.
think I already know the answer. Really?
Everyone
I was going to say no way. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you absolutely do. Everyone has the chance to do that.
Okay.
Whether it's the path that you end up choosing or not, that remains to be seen, because we all have free will.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely a possibility for you.
I sure. Like I remember when her and my mom, my brother, I've lost quite a few people in my life. I probably I would think about gosh, I wish they'd appear, and then no, I don't. And now it's kind of like, yeah, I do. I really wish I could see just however they show up to me, whatever it is. You and I both know that my sister will do things to make her know she's there, and she'll bug you until you tell me.
She's so fun.
Oh gosh, I wish you guys met, in the world here, this time. But I just, I've been trying to talk more, reach out more, talk to her more, but I don't get as much yet that I desire, I guess.
So one of the key elements in opening the channel with spirit is letting go of expectations. So I know you have a really high standard for yourself. And when you see someone else doing something, you're like, I can do that. And if it doesn't happen right away, there's a little bit of judgment, and questioning. And a lot of people bump up against that. You have to exercise the muscle of being unattached, which when it's your own family, it's very difficult. That's why it's easy for me to connect with your sister, because I'm detached. Except for when she wants to latch on to me and be like, we have to call Martine right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
I said right now. But I don't have any skin in that game, so to speak. So it's easier for me to receive a message from her. And that may be a good place for you to start. Find some other energy that isn't emotionally connected to you, and start to acknowledge what messages are coming through around that intention.
Okay. That's cool. That's really cool. So if I were focused on something else or someone else or something else were to come in, just really be curious about that, but not focus on her energy or any of my other deceased members of the family. Okay. That's cool. did you actually, when you work with women, which actually, let's say right now, who do you work with and how can people get in touch with you? And then we'll go a little further with that.
So I work with women who know that there's more out there. They know that the life they've been living is not all that they were meant to live and contribute to the existence of humankind. They also are willing to do the work and show up in order to find that greater purpose. Really, what we do is accessing the inner priestess of sovereignty. And sometimes we have a charge around the idea of priestess or goddess, that it's religious. It's not. It's all within you. And it's the essence of owning who you are at a soul level. So you can find me on social media, Live Your Divinity with Jami on Facebook, and also on the web at jamihearn.com, and it's JamiHearn.
And what about the podcast?
Oh, and the podcast. Yes, and on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you download your podcasts, Witches, Bitches, and Dead People.
Yes. I just love that. We'll be back, everyone, with some more awesome spiritual talk. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine. That's me. This is where we overcome everything, compromise nothing, conquer everything. This is the place. So my guest today is Jami Hearn, and we're talking about spirituality and intuition and mediumship and so many awesome things that just totally excite me. So we were talking a little bit on the break about a lot of people have a hard time embracing spirituality if they've had a rough religious upbringing like I did. There's a lot of, I think Catholic guilt has stopped me from money, limiting beliefs on money, limiting beliefs on having the life I want to have, like living by the ocean, that kind of thing. So what do you think, Jami, in regards to all that?
I'll try to stay as far away from my soapbox as possible.
Okay. No, just go.
So there is a huge portion of the world that has negative programming around religion based on experiences with a particular religion. And that causes them to shy away from the idea of spirituality because it does dovetail and overlap, and the dogma is the same, but the application is very different. Spirituality, in my definition, is the exploration of your own soul's connection with the universe and all of the other energies around you. So whether you say that there's a God or a creator or a source or whatever, that doesn't define your spirituality. You get to define that. And you can be a Christian, a Muslim, a Buddhist, whatever, and still explore your spirituality outside of what the church is telling you. I have a client who was involved in the Catholic abuse scandal, and her name was leaked on Good Morning America before she had a chance to tell her family.
Oh my goodness.
So holding her hand through the process of navigating the initial betrayal that she experienced, the inability to trust, because the Catholic Church was supposed to be larger than everyone who was a party to this. And then the continued betrayal throughout her adult life. Like there was a lot to work through for her.
Yeah.
And she was able to navigate her own spirituality and find peace with all of the trauma that she experienced. So I look to her as like the gold standard. If she can do it, most of us can.
Right, right. Oh, that's good. But Guy, I can't imagine something leaking to Good Morning America or whatever. My gosh, like how did that get out? Eek.
It's a long, drawn out story, but it happened. It happened like midweek, and that weekend I actually had already planned a retreat, and she was attending it. So it was perfect timing for her that she was able to access this ready-made sisterhood that was there to catch her.
Yeah.
Which is what she needed in that moment. But she was able to recognize that the teachings and the tenets of religion were most of the time created or altered by humans, not necessarily by our creator.
Right.
And humans are motivated by different things than divine beings are motivated. And I consider all of us to be divine beings. But we're working through this human incarnation and we have this ego. So there are a lot of different influences that bubble up as we're navigating what serves us in this lifetime.
Right.
So you can't necessarily expect that that's one size fits all.
Right. So do we really all make the decision to come here with some of the stuff that we go through? Really?
Yes.
Oh,
Our souls have lessons to learn. Sometimes they're karmic lessons. So I have one client who was a tax collector in feudal Europe, and he was ruthless, like did really bad stuff, all for $1 or, whatever it was then, a shilling or whatever.
Right.
And he's experienced some really significant money issues in this lifetime, and he can't figure out why. Like, he has a good job. He does all the things that 3D society says, do this and you'll be successful. Yeah. And he just hasn't been able to do it. So we went into his records and learned that this is a karmic lesson that he's endeavored to accomplish in this lifetime. We did a lot of shifting around it. We've done a lot of energy work, and that lesson has settled in for him. He's checked the box and he's been able to shift his relationship with money into a more favorable experience in this lifetime. But his soul chose that. And his soul also chose to meet me and work through it without having to suffer his entire lifetime with it.
Yeah, well, at least that's good that that's there, right? We do have free will. We come in with these lessons. Okay, so I'm understanding. We come in with these lessons but we have free will to change it, especially when we know something's going on.
Yes.
There was a person, this was in my 20s. We had when we were on in a friendship, it was on. And then there was always like this, whether it was men, and she was beautiful. Men went for her much more than they did me. But if anybody paid me attention, it was just, we were off. And then there was just this horrible thing. And then I don't remember, it was a psychic guide that told me that in a past lifetime, and she has an incredible singing voice. So I think she's always been a singer, no matter how many times she's come to earth again or been incarnated. And I guess there was one lifetime where I chopped her off her head. I don't know what for or whatever, but that's that. And I thought, well, there must be something there. And I know in this lifetime, she's never taken her music to the level that she could. So it was just weird. Like when we were on, and then we were not. And then I was told this, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, but it kind of makes sense when I think about it.
Well, it's interesting to note patterns in your life that don't have a lot of explanation and see where the thread comes from. What's the seed event? Why does this keep coming up for me? Yeah. So that would be interesting to dig into. You can't really access her records, but you can see where your information intersects with hers. And there's probably a lot of healing there for you to endeavor also. I find that every reading I do, there's a little nugget in it for me that I needed. That's why that client came into my life. And the work that you are sharing with the world heals you too.
Yeah, I totally like what you're saying, totally resonates with her, but with other things too, because I'm a very steadfast, loyal friend. And it always hurt when she was just like, she'd shun me for weeks on end and then we'd be back again. And I always felt so bad. And I've always been the type that is loyal in all my relationship, friendships, my relations with men, whatever, I've always been very loyal. So that totally resonates.
Maybe there's a little lesson in that for you.
Yeah, I think maybe now that we talk about that, yeah, for sure. So like in regards to all this and lifetimes of coming back to work on things and religion, how do we get like on the right path to get rid of the limiting beliefs, to access the things that we can change so we can live the life we want to live? Like for me, I want to travel the world. I want to see different cultures, meet different people, connect. I want to live by the water. Like how do you start changing those things?
Well, the first thing is identifying what you want to change. It's very difficult to identify the limiting beliefs just by saying, wonder what my belief is about this.
Yeah.
Because it's an unconscious belief. It's programmed so deeply into your DNA that 90% of the time you're not going to be able to articulate it. So it's necessary to develop a mechanism to access those subconscious beliefs. For me, it's the Akashic records. For some people, it's breath work. For some people, it's meditation. Sometimes it's journaling. So it's really a unique process that you kind of have to try on for size. There's no one prescription, but the key is working past your ego and your conscious brain into what your soul is really feeling.
So like if we're talking about we pinpoint a limiting belief like a money story, and we feel in a lot of ways like we've healed stuff from this lifetime, like say something like my dad would say was money, never had it, never will. And I don't believe that in the least bit for me. So if I'm still not attracting what I want, does that mean that it goes further than
Probably
this life? Okay.
Yeah. It definitely goes further than this life. Okay. Because you're working through the process of your own experience and your ancestors before you. And especially living here in the US, if you had ancestors who lived through the Depression, that's another layer that you have to work through.
For sure. Well, that makes sense too. Yeah. So we're going to take a break in a moment. And then I was thinking maybe we talk too about like the harmony between us, as a lot of people don't understand the masculine, feminine, the harmony between them both. If that sounds good to you, we'll talk
Awesome.
about that. All right. So tell everybody where they can find you again before we take that break.
You can find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and my website, jamihearn.com, or on Apple and anywhere you download your podcast at Witches, Bitches, and Dead People.
Yes, yes. All right, everyone. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Jami Hearn, and we have been talking about everything spiritual and intuition and mediumship and all that stuff. So before we went on break, we thought we'd talk a little bit about the harmony between the masculine and feminine. And I know before I got into the whole coaching world, I never really separated masculine, feminine, except for boy and girl kind of thing. There's so much more to it than that.
Totally.
Yes.
It honestly has very little to do with we have us. love the word harmony. It's not a balance. It is never 50-50. Harmony is a far more accurate statement because it is an ebb and flow, a give and take of contributions from both parts of you. I spent a lot of years in the masculine energy. I was very good at doing things. Whatever the task was, I could do it. I was a college athlete. I was an honor student. I mean, I went to law school. It's a very masculine energy. So it wasn't until my mid to late 30s that I really started to explore the feminine energy and how those two energies are so divergent. And both are typically wounded within each of us. So you have a feminine expression that is looking for a masculine counterbalance, so to speak. But it's looking for that masculine energy through the veil of victimhood or weakness or whatever other negative perceptions we have in this society of feminine. And that's often a very difficult thing to navigate because I come from a mother who is strongly feminist. She was the one getting sent home from school in the 70s because she said, I'm not wearing a skirt. You wear a skirt. I'm wearing whatever I want to. And she's still very much like that. She's a strong, independent woman. Well, being a strong, independent woman doesn't mean that you have to have masculine energy all the time. There is a strength in receiving, and there is a strength in creation that only the feminine can embody. So as we all continue to wake and ascend and evolve into a deeper representation of who we are, it's important to honor both the divine masculine and the divine feminine in every aspect of our life.
I am thinking, thinking at least of my own past. Like, I was never a tomboy type person, always loved all the frilly little things of little girls and all that kind of thing. And I think stuff that happened to me made me just a fighter. Like, I reached a certain point in my life, like, I'm not taking any more crap. And I've always been like a doer, motivated, highly motivated, always running. So I'm wondering if I would have been a little bit more, I don't know, in the feminine, if I didn't have to always be fighting for myself.
Possibly. Sometimes when we feel like we have to fight for ourselves, that's coming from an experience with the wounded masculine. So the wounded masculine is the energy that's oppressive and controlling and sometimes creates fear. So the backlash of that is this over expression of masculine energy in the feminine form. But just because you exist in your divine feminine doesn't mean you don't get things done. It's a matter of how they get done. I was always very good at pushing, forcing, making something happen. And often that doesn't result in what you were intending it to become.
Yeah.
As I have leaned into a more feminine expression and allowed things to flow and happen and unfurl as they are intended. Now, don't get me wrong. There are still some uncomfortable experiences that happen that way. but I have been able to access a deeper level of joy,
Right.
more abundance, deeper happiness, better relationships. So it's really been beneficial to me to let go of the push and allow things to flow.
So what if you like there's that controlling energy like you talk about, but it's like letting go and actually trusting, like trusting yourself, trusting the outcome. How do you do that?
It's not easy all the time.
Yeah.
Surrender is one of the most difficult activities that I have had to
Right.
endeavor. But it's completely worth it. And sometimes it has to be very intentional and keep telling yourself, this is happening the way it's supposed to. Let it flow. Let it happen. You don't have to control this. So mantras, they're very helpful in this.
I do a lot of that. Yes. Like, okay, I trust, I trust, I trust, I trust. And just keep saying it, and that, whatever it is that I'm looking for, like, I can have this. This is good. This is okay. And I can relax about it. It'll come in the right time. Peace. Yes. So people I know are going to respond to this show. Again, where can people find you? And what's the best way to start working with you? Like a group or a personal?
So on Facebook, if you look up my page, Live Your Divinity with Jami, you'll find some opportunities to join a group that I run on Facebook where we focus on spiritual development. I also offer an intuition bundle on my website, jamihearn.com, where you can start digging into your own process and learning to access your intuition at a deeper level. And then on Witches, Bitches, and Dead People, my new podcast, we talk a lot about developing your connection with spirit. So you can certainly get some additional information there.
Yeah, and you do one-on-one as well, right?
I do.
Yeah, readings. And how long does it say an Akashic reading take? It's been a while for me, so.
Honestly, often I get the most potent information in the first 20-ish minutes of a reading, and then things will flow. I mean, some readings are an hour, some readings are 45 minutes, but you don't need a lot of time to really get useful information.
Yeah, I find it for everybody listening, it's very informative, and Jami can tap into like quickly. you know it, you sense it, you feel it. I would highly recommend it, everyone. So thank you so much, Jami. This has been so fun, so informative. And I can't wait to our next show, which will be soon.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Again, the show is every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to Transformation with Martine. Did listening today spark a sense of hope and possibility? Hold on to this feeling and tune in every second and fourth Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific for more inspiring conversations with Martine and her guests. They will show you there is hope, and you are right where you need to be. Martine is dedicated to supporting you right where you are while launching you towards promise, passion, and possibility that leads to the fulfilled life your heart aches for. If you're tired of being stuck, schedule a complimentary consultation with Martine and get on the exciting path towards the life you want to be living. Visit martineemmons.com and make your appointment today.